Navigating the insidious illness of Alzheimer's is something nobody asks for. The disease sneaks up on you and your loved one, and it feels like you've been sucker punched in the gut. Then you ask, where do we turn for help? Who do we call? What do we do? These questions and more are what we hope to answer and give you some direction and hope. Now let's join our host, Jeff Edwards.
Greetings and welcome. Here we are again. GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers. Season 2, Episode 2. And for you non-digital people, Episode 22. Well, hope you had a good week. There's lots going on everywhere. Labor Day's coming up. And can autumn and cooler temperatures be that far away? Only hope so. Today, we're going to look at a portion of the article, Helping Family and Friends Understand Alzheimer's Disease. Now, more specifically, helping children understand. It's from the National Institute on Aging. Now, we're looking at this because it will tie in nicely with our guest and her interview we'll be doing in just a little bit. You know, we had received an email back in July from an Alzheimer's advocate who happened to hear GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers, and she liked what she heard. She offered help with her experience and insight. Sandra Kiser not only had 3 members of her family, an aunt, a brother, and her mother who suffer through the illness, she is an Alzheimer's advocate. She's published 3 books. 1, a children's book that she created, and to top that off, a coloring book that corresponds with the children's book. And all this made me think about how tough it is for young children or grandchildren to understand what's going on with a parent or grandparent. And we'll give some information on the up-and-coming Alzheimer's Walk that happens around the country the next 2 months or so. Okay, here we go. What are 3 rules we follow here at GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers? Wait, what? There's 3, you say? Well, if you missed the last episode, that was episode 21, we added a new one. That's right. We'll get to it. Now, number 1, you have to take care of yourself, because if something happens to you, who is going to take care of your loved one? Makes sense, doesn't it? And number 2, you can't do it alone. You need help. Find a good caregivers group or network with friends and relatives. And here is the new one. Make a list of people, friends, relatives, co-workers who have offered to help you in time of need. And then make a list of things you need done but can't do yourself because caregiving duties are overwhelming. Use the list. Start at the top. Keep going till you get what you need done. Done. You'll find it very helpful. Ready? Let's get to it. We have an article from the National Institute on Aging, and it's titled Helping Family and Friends Understand Alzheimer's Disease. We're not going to do the whole article. We're going to do bits and pieces of it because we want to get to the part about the children. We'll do the whole article at another time. So here it is. Helping family and friends understand Alzheimer's disease. When you learn that someone close to you has Alzheimer's disease, deciding when and how to tell your family and friends may be difficult. You may be worried about how others will react to or treat your loved one. It's okay to wait until you feel emotionally ready to share the news or to only tell your closest family members and friends. By knowing what is happening, the people you trust the most can help support you and the person with Alzheimer's. Now, here's the subtitle. Helping children understand. When a family member has Alzheimer's, it affects the whole family, including children and grandchildren. It's important to talk to young people and help them understand what's happening. For example, answer their questions simply and honestly. For example, you might tell a young child, Grandma has an illness that makes it hard for her to remember things. Tell them that feelings of sadness and anger are normal. Comfort them. Explain that no one caused the disease. Young children may think they did something to hurt their grandparent. Now, younger children may watch how you act around your loved one with Alzheimer's. Do not use baby talk or adopt a harsh tone with your loved one. Children may pick up on this and act similarly. Try to be mindful of the tone of voice you're using and the way you're interacting with them. It's important to show children they can still talk with the person and do things with them. Activities children and people with Alzheimer's might do together include simple arts and crafts, playing music or singing, looking through photo albums, reading stories aloud. If you and your children are living in the same house as someone with Alzheimer's, it's important not to let caregiving responsibilities overshadow the children's day-to-day needs. For example, avoid having a young child help take care of or babysit the person with Alzheimer's. This may not be safe for the child or that person. Make sure the child has time for their own interests and needs, such as playing with friends, school activities, or doing homework. Spend quality time with your child so they don't feel that all your attention is on the person with Alzheimer's. Be honest about your feelings when you talk with your kids, but don't overwhelm them. Some children may not talk about their feelings, but may act out at school or at home. Older children and teens might be embarrassed by the behavior of the person with Alzheimer's. Let children know they can always talk to you about what they're feeling. School counselors and social workers also can help children develop healthy ways to process their feelings. Now we're going to flip over to some information from the Alzheimer's Association for Kids. Some people with early-stage Alzheimer's may forget words or not remember your name. Otherwise, you may not notice too many changes. But when you spend time with people with later-stage Alzheimer's, it is easy to see that something serious is going on. Some people with Alzheimer's may cry, become angry very easily, or behave in ways that embarrass you. Sometimes the person may not remember who you are, even if it is someone like a grandparent who knows you very well. Now, people with Alzheimer's disease are not acting like this because they don't care about you. Changes deep inside the brains are destroying the centers that control remembering, thinking, and feeling. Now, some selections, helpful links I'm going to tell you about will help you learn more about Alzheimer's disease and how it affects the people you love. And these are listed as books for kids. The first one is called The Secret Life of Lincoln Jones. The next one is called Weeds in Nana's Garden. Another one is Still My Grandpa, Graduation of Jake Moon. The next one, Memory Box. And here's another one, Wordsworth Dances the Waltz. This is my favorite. Why did Grandma put her underwear in the refrigerator? Now, you can get these from the Alzheimer's Association website, and we always give that at the end of the program, so you might want to check it out.
We'll be right back to GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers.
Repeat after me. Apple, table, penny.
Apple, red.
When you tell people he has Alzheimer's, but he's in a clinical study, it's
not so hopeless.
Yeah.
Maybe. You know, it's like, I hope we can just hang in there and maybe they'll find something, you know.
Ask me again.
What season is it?
It's when all the leaves down and
I know it's there, but I can't get it.
Yeah.
And it just kills me.
I remember watching Dad interact with the kids and thinking, geez, in 5, 6 years, will he even know who they are? 1 in 10 Americans over 65 has Alzheimer's disease. Learn more today at brightfocus.org.
This is GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers.
Well, we're coming up upon that time of year when the walks for Alzheimer's will be happening. Just a couple quick notes. The walks near you, in Southwest Florida at least. Fort Myers, November 16th. Naples, November 9th. Sarasota, Florida, November 2nd. Sun City Center, October 19th. Boca Raton, November 10th. We kind of went backwards, but that's how they're going to happen. Make sure you find out. Go to the Alzheimer's website and check out walks near you. I am talking with Sandra Kiser. She's an Alzheimer's advocate, author, and speaker dedicated to raising awareness and empowering communities. Now, I got an email from her, I think maybe by the end of July, and it said, I came across GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers, and was deeply moved by the heartfelt approach. I would be honored to contribute my insights and experiences to further support and inspire your audience. Thank you for considering my participation. And we're talking to her right now. And I'm so glad that you reached out. We spoke last week, and I thought we had a great conversation. I learned so much, and I loved your positive attitude.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Are you doing all right?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Long day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
one day at a time.
You're busy all the time. I'm busy all the time. I have to say I was fascinated by your creativeness and your talents for turning the negatives of a nasty illness into a positive, creative idea. I also, through our conversation, found out how you leaned on your faith to get you through all of this, and that was inspiring. You've been involved with being an advocate since 2001, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
You had an aunt who had the illness, and then your mother, and then your brother. How did that affect you? I mean, were you a caregiver for all of these? Tell us a little bit about the history there.
Okay, so in 2001, when I first moved to Orlando from Detroit, my aunt had recently been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and that was during the time when people were starting to talk about it a little bit more. So my uncle took care of her until he couldn't anymore, and he had to place her in a nursing home. And so my role was more, I look back as moral support, but when she got to the point where she wasn't able to feed herself, when I would go out on weekends, I would help feed her. But I would say my role with her was more of moral support for my uncle and my cousins. But I didn't realize at the time that it was also a period of preparation for me, because 10 years later is when I would learn that my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and then one of my brothers a few years after that. So definitely it was my faith that got me through. I love how God works. You think that you're doing something for one reason, but he's actually preparing you for something that you're going to face ahead. I always say now that period of time was my introductory course to Alzheimer's 101.
That's a tough way to go, too. Really.
Yeah.
You only can do what you can do.
Right.
Like you said, you've learned from it. When we talked last time, you used a phrase a couple times, pack your patience. And actually, I chuckled when I first heard it because I found it as a reminder for me to chill more. Where did that come from, pack your patience?
That came from me helping with my mom and brother. You know, they're Alzheimer's patients, they were moving, and you know it was there, and you start questioning yourself, and it can be frustrating to you. So I had to step back and tell myself, you know what? You're the one who's doing too much. You already know that they don't remember and they're not aware of what's going on, but you do. And you're getting all frustrated and bothered by something that you can control. So I had to say to myself, okay, you need to pack your patience because you're doing way too much. You know what's going on and they don't. Don't even worry about how something got moved. You know it had to be them if nobody else is there. And I would find myself saying, Mama, did you move this? No, I didn't touch that. And then I had to realize, why are you asking her that? Because you know if she did, she's not going to remember. So I had to tell myself, pack your patience. Don't get all frustrated about what's going on because you know they don't know what's happening right now, but you do. So do what you can and keep it moving. So that's where that came from.
That's great. Let's go back a little bit. Tell me where you came from, a little history. Where'd you grow up from then on?
Okay, sure. So I was born in Alabama. I lived there until I was about 15. My grandmother got sick. Her daughter took her to Missouri. But I had a cousin who I had known since I was a small child. And I wanted to go closer, to be closer with my grandmother. Didn't really want to go to Missouri, though. I asked my parents if I could go to Detroit, and they said, yeah. So that's how I ended up in Michigan. My grandmother passed like a few months later, but I stayed there, graduated high school and college. And then when I got a job, professional job, I am a proposal writer in the engineering industry. I had an opportunity to come down for some work, and I met a colleague, and she said, would you ever move back south? I said, oh, I would. I said, when you're a kid and you go to a big city, you think, ooh, big city, bright lights, that's so cool. But when I became an adult, I was like, ooh, I kind of miss the South. And she said, would you ever move south? I said, I would. I said, if you guys get an opening here, let me know. And it was less than a year later she called me and told me they had an opening. And so the company I worked for relocated me, and that's how I got to Orlando. And then that's when I learned about my aunt. After my mom was diagnosed in 2011, I would travel to Montgomery back and forth every year for a couple of weeks to help with her care until it got to the point, and I thought, you know what, this is really a lot. I may need to move. Even though you have siblings, you know, you still want to make sure you do your part and do what you can. So in 2016, I moved to Montgomery to help with her care, and not realizing that while there, I would have the opportunity to support my sister-in-law with my brother. And so I stayed there. Once both of them passed, then I thought, okay, my work here is done. So then I moved back to Orlando in 2020, right when the pandemic hit. So I came back home after that assignment was complete. I thought I was going to stay, but I had other plans, so I'm back here in Central Florida.
There you go. You came back to Orlando in pandemic time, and nobody could travel, nobody can do anything. That's when you started to work on your first book. Is that correct?
Well, I actually started working on it before I left Montgomery. Right, and things were starting to get heated with the pandemic before it actually shut everything down. A young lady that I attended church with here, she initiated a writing challenge, and I thought, oh, this will be cool. I mean, I started writing down some things prior to that, and I thought maybe I should participate. I'm like, nobody's going anywhere, so why not? And I did, and I ended up completing the book after I moved back here. It actually turned out to be a blessing to so many people. There were people that I know, people that I didn't know, who had gotten a hold of the book, and that just really helped me a lot. There were some things I knew, some things I didn't know. That made me feel really good to know that I was obedient, because I thought God on it. I was like, I don't really want to write this book right now. Because, you know, you have to go back and revisit your place of pain. I'm thinking, I don't really want to do this right now. But it just kept presenting opportunities to me that pushed me further into writing that book. And I was like, okay, I think I don't have a choice here. And I don't want to get in trouble with him. So I wrote it, and here we are. It ended up being a blessing to so many people. That made me smile, because that was the whole goal. I wondered how many other people who were dealing with this, because you don't know, because people don't really talk about it a lot still. You have to almost pour out to others, and then people will open up and go, hey, I'm actually going through that right now. It's not like people just start talking about it. So I thought, okay, well, let me do my part to make sure that I get the message out, so that people don't have to be afraid of it.
Now, the first book was Mysterious Wonderment When Disease Becomes Your Word of the Day.
When Alzheimer's disease becomes your word of the day, yeah.
Okay. What's it about? Snapshot.
So that book, it tells a little bit about me. It talks about my journey walking through it with my mom and brother, and it provides resources for others who may be in that space. And it just tells my story and how, you know, we have to embrace it, because it can be a part of so many different people's lives. So you don't have to be afraid of it. It's okay to talk about it. Basically what that book is about, just sharing my journey.
That's really good. Okay. So now, I have to be honest, since we spoke last week, I've told many people about you and your children's book to address a scary illness that kids don't understand.
Right.
Your second book is The Amazing Adventures of the Jolly Heart Squad.
Right.
Now, how did you come up with that name?
Well, in the first book, I don't know if you recall when I gave you just a little snapshot when we first spoke, there was this incident where one of my brothers and I were playing. We were kids. We were throwing rocks. We killed a frog. So remember the frog. So in the Jolly Heart Squad, I thought, wow, it would be nice to write a book, because a lot of the adults who had read the first book said, wow, this was easy to understand. Sometimes that material is so difficult to understand. And I thought, oh, that's good. And I thought, wow, I wonder if children could really comprehend this. And I thought, man, I should write a children's book. And so what I did was I used my brother as one of the characters. And there's a little girl that tells the story, which is kind of like me. overhears a conversation with her mom and her grandmother talking about her uncle who may have early onset, which is what my brother had. The characters are the little girl, a dwarf elephant, and that frog. The little girl's grandparents live on a farm adjacent to an elephant farm. So when she's a toddler, her mom walks her in the stroller and she makes eye contact with this baby elephant calf. And then they just become friends. And as they grow, they become buddies. And then they're out playing. And then they encounter the frog, Repeatable, who says, "Oh my God, I can't believe a little girl and an elephant." And so they, the three of them, they kind of butt heads and then they become friends. The twist on it is Ears, the elephant. Elephant never forgets, and that's a symbol for Alzheimer's, but Ears does. They all have vibrant personalities. They get along, they're jolly, and they want to learn more about the disease. They want to spread the news and tell the whole world about it, how you don't have to be afraid of it. It's okay to talk about it. Make sure you're careful when you're speaking about it in front of patients, because even though they can't remember everything, many of them can hear. And that moment that you think they don't comprehend, they do. And when you say certain things, it kind of frustrates them and you don't want to be offensive to them. So they all become friends, and then they start to hear about Alzheimer's because she shares that she heard her mother and grandmother talking about it, and they want to know more. The frog, who is the town know-it-all, tells them that I know someone who's a retired brain surgeon and he can teach us about it. Well, the brain surgeon happens to be a mouse. So they travel to this village called Chatterville, and they meet Dr. Theodore McMice, who teaches them about the brain and Alzheimer's. And then he empowers them to go out into the community and tell the world about it. So they don't have to be afraid of it, because the more people that know about it and understand it, the better off we all are, and we can prepare ourselves and help others.
That's a great story, and I love the characters.
Yeah.
You relate to them, and everybody else can relate to them.
Right.
Takes you back to when you're young and you think about animals and how they communicate. I think it was great. Now, to top that off, though, you turned around and did a coloring book about the book. Where did that come from?
So I did the coloring book because I knew some children have smaller siblings, and I thought babies, toddlers, 2 to 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds range, they're not going to be able to understand even what maybe a 10 or 11-year-old understands. I said, well, a friend of mine did the graphics for me. She drew the characters. I said, we need to come up with a coloring book that just introduces the characters and talks a little bit about the brain and how the brain works. And that's what sparked the idea behind the coloring book, to make sure that the smaller children had the images of the characters so they wouldn't rip the pages out of the book from their older siblings, but they can color and they can see and read. This is Dr. McMice. He's going to teach us about the brain. So it's real simple, but designed for toddlers. It can introduce them to the characters. So what's to come, they'll be familiar with them.
That was a great idea. It was a great idea. When I was looking around your website, we'll talk about that shortly, I came across the other thing that I really liked, and we talked about it. For your blogs, you call it Salt Pebbles.
Right.
Salt Pebbles, the Alzheimer's for All officially monthly blog. You told me how that came about, so why don't you share that?
Sure. So it wasn't easy because I had to be catchy. So I was looking through some old photos from some family reunions, and one of the photos reminded me of my mom's nickname. My brother Greg, who had early onset, one of his friends had given my mom the nickname Mrs. Rock. And I thought, how can I incorporate that into the blog name? Can't be Mrs. Rock. That was just too simple. And then I thought about how salt is formed from rock salt, which is a natural preservative that adds flavor. And I said, okay, then a pebble is a smaller version of a rock. It's solid and smooth. And I said, wow, that's like me and mama. So then I thought, salt pebble. I said, okay, I think that's it, salt pebble. What made me think of that was I'm a chip off the old rock. So I'm thinking it still kind of carries my mom's legacy forward. And then, of course, I had to take it back to scripture in Mark 9:50, where it talks about how good salt is worthless if it's loses its saltiness. Whatever we do, we want to make sure we maintain our flavor. And for me, that is making sure that I continue the fight to educate and bring awareness to Alzheimer's disease. Other people can learn from those who have gone through it, and they can be better and they can tell others so that all of us can be more empowered and educated about the disease.
And that's one of the things that you and I have talked about. And we both know that there are people who don't know where to go, don't know where to find the information. And as you continue to spread the information to them, it helps them. And that's a big thing. So many people have it. And they're making progress with different drugs and their research. But I think it's going to still be a while. It's always good to be able to give somebody else an opportunity to learn. Being an advocate is tremendous. So I got to ask you, are you working on any new books? Anything in the work?
I am working on a sequel to the Jolly Heart Squad. I'm packing my patients to make sure that I take them where they're supposed to go instead of where Sandra wants them to go, but it's in the works.
Very good. Will you still be an advocate for those dealing with the illness? It sounds like you will, because that's what we're here for.
Yes, I actually volunteer with the Central and North Florida chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. So yes, I will still be out there educating the community and making people aware of the disease.
Excellent. How can listeners follow you? Give us your website address.
Sure. My website is www.alz4all.com. And you can also follow me, Sandra Kiser, on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay. And how can listeners find your books and purchase them?
My books are available on Amazon, both Mysterious Wonderment, When Alzheimer's Disease Becomes Your Word of the Day, and The Amazing Adventures of the Jolly Heart Squad, the book and coloring book.
Do you have any advice for people that are just finding their way in navigating this disease?
Yes. 3 things I always tell people: that it's okay to talk about it. You don't have to be afraid of it. And be mindful of the Alzheimer's patient when you're speaking about their care in front of them, because they can see, they can hear, and you don't want to be offensive to them.
That's really good advice. It's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much for your time and your dedication to helping people. And I said this to you, you're a blessing to others, and it's been a sincere pleasure talking with you. God bless.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being a part of your show, and I thank you again for having me.
We'll be right back to Gut Punched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers.
Are you the caregiver for someone living with dementia? You're not alone. The Dubin Center in Fort Myers offers free educational classes and support.
The Dubin Center has given me a shoulder to lean on.
Call today or visit us at dubincenter.com to learn more.
This is Gut Punched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers.
Hope you enjoyed today's podcast, especially the interview with Sandra. I'm going to order her books myself, and I'm not sure, though, if I can color between the lines. I really like Sandra. She had a great story and a very positive attitude. In the next couple of episodes, we'll be talking to our friend from NRPC, Amy Schenk, about early detection of Alzheimer's and how to know when it's time to get yourself or loved one tested, among other things. We'll have a former law enforcement officer who owns and operates a driving school that tests memory-impaired drivers to see if they can still drive and determine if it's time to turn in the keys. And if you're a caregiver, you have probably experienced that battle. Also, someone from Home Instead, a service company that offers great care to your loved ones, and they're located all around the country. And 3 men in our Caregivers group spoke very highly of them in the last meeting and recommended them to everyone. So I was so impressed I had to go check it out myself. Also, coming up soon, we'll have someone from Reunite, a United Way program, a multi-layered program that incorporates drones and a group of certified bloodhounds specifically designated to search and rescue operations, in case your loved one needs to be located. If you know someone who has a family member or friends who are dealing with a loved one who has Alzheimer's or any type of dementia, that you would let them know about this podcast. For more information, you can check out the Alzheimer's Support Network at https://allsupport.org/about us. Or you can check out the Dubin Center at thedubincenter.com. Now, to find your local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, go to alz.org. Local resources, find your local chapter. They're all around the country. And if you have any questions or thoughts about GutPunched, Alzheimer's, and caregivers, or if there is a specific topic you would like to know more about, reach out to us. Now, the website is gutpunched.com, and the email address is gutpunchedac@outlook.com. Now, an update on the website, the new one is up and online. Now, we still have to tweak a few things and add some more book titles and links, but we think you'll find it much easier to navigate, and I think it looks really good. A special shout out to Helicopter Marketing for making this happen. And we have another special shout out to Rick Peterson, Aura Santana, Gendry Thomas, Dan Moser, Sheila Book, the Dubin Center, and my wife for their tremendous help and support in making this podcast possible. Thanks for joining us, and please come back again for more. God bless.
This has been Gut Punched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers, with your host, Jeff Edwards. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to us on all the platforms like Spotify, Apple, Pandora, and more. If you have a question or you want to get in touch, our email is gutpunchedac@outlook.com, or you can visit our website at gutpunched.com.